Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Postmaster General DeJoy, we've met many times. It occurred to me, I was looking at when you were sworn in, and this must have been the longest 3 years of your life, good brother.
I was born in Brooklyn, so
yeah,
that was long, too.
I think you have earned an epitaph, said, this guy never quit. You've hung in there. But I have to say, some of the changes, I realize that you're dealing with quite a complex machine. But some of the changes, it really are beyond, from a perspective of common sense. They're beyond understanding. Like shifting mail to your major hubs, looking at it on a map and say, I guess this looks like a good idea from that perspective. But when you get down to the reality of taking a piece of mail and that's scheduled to be delivered, half a mile away from a post office and sending that mail 100 miles away to a hub to have it distributed to come back, these are the kind of things that, when they're pointed out, they make no sense. But I have to say that I believe that, from my perspective, your biggest problem is regulations. You're being regulated to death. And let me point out regarding money, in 1980, a stamp was 18 cents. It's 63 cents now. So you've gone up 45 cents for a stamp. But in 1980, America's total debt was $1 trillion. It's $32 trillion now. So Congress is in no position to look at the post office and say, your rates have gone up too much. You're receiving a tremendous amount of American treasure through direct budgeting and appropriation, but it seems to me that your problems come from regulation. So I ask you candidly, if you had the regulatory requirements of 1980 and the rates and budget of 2023, how fast could you fix your problems?
Well, sir, and one quick point on the logistics behind moving the mail. Has to deal with volume aggregation and so forth. So that's why why that process.
Setting that aside, Mr. DeJoy, you say you have a list of 1,000 pages of rules you have to follow, right? You were talking about why a mail carrier and it can't deliver to a house right next to another house. I talked to an old guy, retired. He said, Clay, it used to be maps and mailboxes determine routes and delivery. It was pretty much that simple. And obviously, if a new resident had established a mailbox at their home, it'd just be added to the route in that area. It was a decision made at the branch. It didn't require committee studies and tremendous, regulatory review. It was just a common sense decision. Someone moved into the neighborhood, they have a mailbox, they'd get added to that route. If you had that kind of command and control, I just think a guy like you could fix a lot of these problems and get to post office, Buxton even. I have to ask you about electric vehicles, though.
Okay.
I wasn't going to bring it up, but my friend Mr. Lynch did. I think this may be the worst idea in the history of bad ideas. I think we're going to look back on this. I mean, utility vehicles must be robust and rugged. You have to have, obviously, a postal delivery vehicle goes through a lot. And as you observe, the American citizens that have electric cars are really casual use vehicles. For instance, no professional hauler or tower, if you tow boats, for instance, you're not going to have an electric truck. You can't go 70, 80 miles with it. So how do you intend to make that work in your most rugged environments across the postal
Well,
system.
that's a good point. Thank you for that question. It was one of the reasons why we came out with only a 10% acquisition in the beginning, and it was right. But I think we have come to a point where we have carved out the right. We know every single route and what its applicability is. Right, the durability of the vehicle is the same. And we know every route where and what type of conditions. And at the end of the day, from the way a vehicle works today, electric vehicle, and what our route system is all over up to Alaska and everything, it's only about 70% of them we'd only get to about 70% of the routes. And then there's different levels of return on electric vehicles. At 66,000 that we're moving in right now, we got the sweet spot of sweet spots in terms of where they're going to go, in terms of where they're going to be resident in these facilities. And I think it's going to work. I mean, I didn't come in raving electric, but
That makes sense.
I think we're in a good place.
That makes
with
sense.
it.
Mr. DeJoy, my time has expired. Thank you for your service, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman. I yield.
Gentlemen,